Hey there, All Things MSP crew. We are back again with an office hours update this time from OIT and our friend Ray Orsini. As promised in the vendor update that we did earlier this month, we are doing this to give you a better detailed description of what OIT does and how it helps the MSP with voice over IP. So, Ray, welcome again to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, well, we appreciate OIT being a sponsor this year. And of course, one of the things that we do with our sponsors is these office hours episodes. The first one we usually reserve to kind of describe your product, your service offering, and your MSP program. And then later
Mhm.
on in the year, we'll have updates to include demos of new features because you guys are always doing new features there at
At
OIT.
least once a month. At least once a month, we have something major coming out. Yeah, it's fun.
So, before we get started, is there anything new that you really want to highlight before we go into more of the details?
Well, you know me, I don't do the whole sales pitch stuff. You and I both grew up in helping other MSPs, helping community. So everything I'm going to show today are real questions. I scoured Reddit, Discord, a bunch of other communities, our own support tickets, and I found the 13 most common questions that happen. So we're going to go through that. As far as new features, if everybody wants to talk to me about it, we have a sentiment analysis. We're one of the few white label providers with an actual cell network, so you can have your own brand. But we'll get into that after the questions.
Sounds good. All right. Well, do you want to go ahead and bring up those questions?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So, like I said, these are 13 questions I looked through. These are recent. I pulled it just for us, for all things MSP. But they're questions that I went through and I started looking for the recurring themes, right? And our VoIP, our MSP, the different Facebook groups, Discords, and communities. And there was a few things that kept coming up over and over again because regardless of what platform you're selling or implementing, or you took an MSP client and they have one, you got to take care of it. There's some things that are universal, right? 10DLC, DLR, VoIP troubleshooting, jitter, packet loss. So we're going to go through these things as they've come up and give you some resources. Everything has a doc link to our stuff that's mostly universally applicable. And then obviously there's OIT treatment, how we handle things. But the goal is I want to help whether you use our solution or not. So don't be afraid to come say hi. So this is me, ex MSP. I was down in the trenches with most of you guys, and did that, had fun. But I realized I like working with MSPs so much better. I like talking to somebody that understands a PCAP and understands SIP ladders and is not going to lie about how many times they rebooted a device. So it's just a nice thing. I am a serial founder. OIT VoIP's my seventh business. MSP Media Network is my eighth. I still have a ninth one going now. But everything is always MSP centric. It's my happy place. It's where I like to go. So, Eric, I never asked you, like, have you ever had to support VoIP yourself?
I did. So back when I had my MSP, uh, obviously VoIP was becoming a thing. It wasn't just a new thing anymore. It was an
Yeah.
actual alternative to a traditional phone system. And so we started doing installs actually with an existing phone provider, somebody who was installing legacy phone systems. He wanted to do voice over IP, but knew that he was going to have issues on the networking side. So we decided to collaborate and we actually
Hmm.
installed some really fun voice over IP that was, I mean, for the time, really stable.
Oh yeah, that was a thing. I mean, the wild west of VoIP was it was crazy. It was fighting with every network provider, um, but fighting with every network provider and trying to determine the gotchas, the devices like the old TP-Link routers that would have SIP ALG enabled, even though it didn't show in the UI. Those were fun times. Netgear had a lot of that too. Those were fun times. Um, but yeah, I came up like you, dude. I actually, when I was an MSP, phone company came knocking on my door trying to sell me phone service. We already had them. as a phone service and ISP. And I was like, but I can help you. And we went out with them doing sales consulting and actually going and doing the cutover, doing the voice and the internet cutover. I got very much started in the same way. And they were my feeders for MSP clients. If any MSPs aren't doing that, go in. Everybody has it's a bad time with their voice provider. Everybody's had some kind of bad experience. Come in and be the hero. And the easiest way to avoid some of that bad experience is planning appropriately, right? So VoIP, everybody should know, voice over IP, it uses your internet traffic. Modern day today, you don't have to have a separate ISP. Like if we're sub 100 users, I'm not even asking for a separate ISP. If you're sub 100 users, you probably have, or you're up to 100 users, you probably have some backup internet anyway. But even that's handled nowadays. If there's a failover, internet goes out, the phones can automatically reroute. We have that set up. And just go to mobile app or go to your cell phone or whatever else. But planning appropriately, you want to look at about 100 kilobits per call. G711's around 64 kilobits. 729 gets a little higher. 729 gets a little lower. It's more condensed. You lose some of the highs and lows. 729 is the actual codec for HD bandwidth. And I have a quick little reference here. Most of the PBXs will set it up by default. We actually start off on G729. Most of our carriers will take it. So if you've ever had a conversation with like a Google Fi subscriber, the audio quality is much better. And that's because they enable HD voice. Bandwidth allows HD voice. Plenty of carriers do. The goal is you want to have a carrier that has enough connectivity with other carriers so they can carry it all the way through, which are the providers we use. So you're going to look for 100 kilobits per user. Best practice is really looking at how many concurrent calls, right? If we have 10 people in the office, it's going to be 3 or 4 calls at a time. If you're a busier center, maybe more. If you're like a medical office, maybe less. But 100 kilobits per concurrent call, and then give it a little 30% overhead. Personally, I like to go and do per user. If I have 10 users, I know I need I know I need a gig. Did I do that right? I need a meg, Jesus. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've had to do calculations. But you need a meg up and down, and then add a little bit extra, call it 1.5 megs. Nowadays with internet, you're not struggling with the DSL we had to deal with. You're not struggling with the T1s at 1.5 megs. Nowadays you have 50 megs down minimum. And the uplink is what you want to look for. But does that make sense? I mean, I wish we would have had this back in the day.
Back when I was doing voice over IP, we were actually doing these little voice over IP phone systems that would sit in the office. But you're getting past that problem by hosting all this in the cloud, right?
That's the point. There's plenty of phone systems that still today require devices on premises. We've never done that. We're a true cloud provider where we have multiple data centers. Everything is high availability. It's not actually a failover in the traditional sense. It's not active passive. It is calls get passed simultaneously to multiple data centers. Your phones will automatically re-register. We do that during maintenance all the time, after hours, of course, but we monitor the failover. And that's the benefit of having a full cloud. You're not, we remember the COVID days where you had to pick up a phone and go home, you had to whatever. The amount of people with legacy PBXs or on premises, even VoIP PBXs, a lot of them were in a jam. And so being able to do this, and with such low network requirements, you're pretty much guaranteed, even when they go home, even during Netflix hours, even during YouTube hours, the phone calls are still going to be pretty good. You're not going to have to worry about that. And it was one of the things that let our MSPs really, really, really shine during COVID, right? It was the whole, we have DR plans, we have our BDR plans, but now we get to actually put it into practice. And that's where I saw a lot of MSPs shine during that time. It wasn't talk anymore. It was, these are the things we've been saying we need to do, and now this is why. And I know a lot of MSPs came out much stronger with their clients, much better relationships.
But I mean, our option back then was those PBX systems had a backup POTS line on them.
Oh yeah.
So we would make sure that they still had at least one or two standard telephone lines in case the internet didn't work.
And for the people that still want to do that, that's still an option to this day. We don't do that. The failover options are so much better than being stuck on premises. But there's still clients to this day that they want internet goes out, they want local failover. Those are accomplishable. It's a little more, it's a little more complicated. One of the things we shine at, because most of my staff are ex-MSPs, that's where we recruit from, and they've had significant network training, they can help you set up these more complicated things. We pride ourselves in the sales engineering side of it, of you tell me I need to do, intercom or paging across multiple sites. We have VPNs with multicast helpers, and we help you build the thing. We have a unified network. We're using FortiGate. We're using whatever. We can help you with that stuff. So don't be shy about it. I wish we would have had that in the day. I didn't have any kind of help. You ever try to set up QoS over the internet?
I wouldn't dare.
Yeah, it's just not a thing. I love when VoIP providers start telling you, and this is the only reason I put it here, because you will hear a VoIP provider tell you, oh, set up QoS and blah, blah. This is where I get to put my CCIE hat on and, and walk everybody back. There's no such thing as QoS outside the firewall, unless you have an MPLS, unless you have some kind of metro area network setup. That's a different conversation. The private links, of course, you can have, tagging set up at the carrier level, but even then, if you go to the next network, it's not there. We get around that, and we don't actually even require MSPs to do this. This is for the local LAN. If you have a large, complex LAN where you're starting to be concerned about it, this is where you're doing VLANs anyway. This is where you're, and you control it at the VLAN level. You don't even have to do it at the base network level. But you don't have to do these phone configs. You don't have to. All the phones that we send out already have these settings by default. So if you do have it set up, it will immediately honor it. Most firewalls will honor it by default. That's Meraki, SonicWall, FortiGate, Zyxel. They'll all honor it. That's not a big deal. But we take care of it on our side because we're in carrier hotels, which is what the data centers are called when you have VoIP providers in them. Carrier hotels have different connectivity. Instead of going from my data center to the nearest POP, maybe 50, 100 miles away, and then exiting there and being ingress for the next carrier, because we're in carrier hotels, we're tied off with Zio, AT&T, Verizon. We're tied off with them in the same data centers, cross connects directly rack to rack. So when we're handing off to a Verizon user, we're doing the same rack. There's zero latency. And then you better believe Verizon's carrying their QoS all the way through their network. And that's the way we kind of get around it, taking away the onus from the MSPs, right? Because there's only so much you can control. So why am I going to sit there and torture you guys with it?
So in simple terms, you're keeping the voice traffic on networks that are designed for voice traffic.
That's the better way to say it. I'm actually going to steal that and give it to my marketing team. But yes, that is the succinct way to say it. You're absolutely right. Let the network carriers talk to the network carriers. That's not the MSP's problem. When they misbehave, we have tools to identify it. This is another headache. This is the helper that never helps, in my opinion. You ever been bit by the SIP ALG bug?
I have not, because it's been a while since I did any of these systems.
Oh, you're lucky. I'm also back from the day of the on-premises. I cut my teeth on, Asterisk Elastics. I got a chance to meet Mark Spencer, the creator of Asterisk. Cool story. If anybody ever wants to reach out, a really cool story of how he got started. But back in the day, that SIP ALG is a network helper, no different than helpers for VLANs or helpers for multicast or whatever else. It's an application layer gateway. And what's supposed to happen is it's supposed to help NATing. It's supposed to help so that when the traffic comes in from the outside, hits the firewall, and then ingress into the rest of the devices, it's supposed to be helping. What happens is it destroys everything. So in VoIP, you'll see the SIP ladder, and we train everybody on this. We actually train our channel partners and white label to use our tools to read out a full call trace directly from our portal. Super easy to do. But we show you, and what happens in a SIP trace is you'll see a contact header and a referrer header, and they'll have IP addresses. The contact is supposed to be the referrer is supposed to be a public IP address. The contact is supposed to be a local IP address. In SIP ALG, the firewall or whatever edge device, it's almost always a firewall or router, is manipulating the headers and will change them both to the same value. Well, if both of your devices are on local IP addresses, how are you going to get out of the firewall? You know what I mean? That's just not going to work. Vice versa. If it gives them both public IPs, how is it going to traverse your LAN? Now, sticky NAT and some of the other things help with that. But SIP ALG is something that still is turned on by default to this day on many, many, many firewalls. You can get around it. We support TLS for VoIP calls, RTCP. We support SIP over TLS as well for the setup. Usually that gets around it, but SIP ALG, we have helpers, we have docs. We'll show you how to do it. And it's super easy. And it's nice that you can tell from the portal, this is what's happening. This is a solution. And my team shows you how to get there. This is another headache. When you have the on-premises system, you're port forwarding every single time. And if you listen to, I'm not going to name names, but if you listen to a lot of the easy to sign up providers, they'll say, oh yeah, just open port 5060 to the internet. Please don't do that ever, ever, ever. I know none of the MSPs in this group would ever do that. You'll just do a straight, make sure your IPs are whitelisted both end to end. For that reason, we have a doc with actually our IP addresses and the ports we use, specifically so that you know what to expect. Most cases, you don't have to do anything at the network level. We make it as easy as possible so you plug in a phone and good to go. We address SIP ALG for the most part on our SBCs in the cloud, no on-premises device for SBCs, whatchamacallit. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. But if you ever have on-premises devices, especially if you're using like a 3CX or a FreePBX or whatever else, you have to do those port forwarding. So those ports in VoIP is their SIP ports, which is the handshake, the connection, right? If you're used to the three-way TCP connection handshake, that's what it is. SIP is, hey, Eric, I speak this codec. I can do these functions. I can put you on hold. I can forward. I can transfer. And what can you do? And then we negotiate a codec, a language, and we go. That's 5060. Or if you're doing it encrypted, 5061. We support both. Not every system does. And then RTP was the actual audio traffic, the real-time protocol. Real-time control protocol is also many devices, Polycom Yealink or Poly today, HP Poly, Yealink, and some others, you can actually affect changes mid-call via RTCP. RTCP also feeds back diagnostic data back to the carrier. So it's very important to have it enabled. By default, it's 10,000 to 20,000. Most providers, most PBXs, it can change. That's one of the things our network tools that are built into the portal, same portal, you can see everything. Our network tools will show you what ports are being used in that same call trace. Really easy to identify. And again, we teach you this stuff. So this isn't you have to have a CCI on staff. This is you take your tier 1, your tier 2, we train them as many times as you want. And then we teach, and then from there, they know how to go and do their diagnostics and they can get these answers. Stun is another one. Stun was the way to get around SIP ALG. The original implementation of it, Stun and ICE, which is basically, Eric, I'm going to ping you so you know what my IP address is, and then you know how to return back to me. Devices today don't need that. I believe 3CX still needs it for devices outside the network. When you do remote devices, we don't differentiate. We don't care. Wherever you are, that's where we'll connect to. Any questions so far?
So not so much a question as I'm thinking through this. When I was doing voice over IP, a lot of this was a black box.
Oh, yeah.
And what it seems to me is not only are you opening up the black box so that we can see what's going on inside and actually diagnose a problem, but you're giving the training to go along with that data so that the MSP can do this. And a lot of this is stuff that, we'd have to call somebody and say, hey, can you check on this? Can you log into the box and see what's going on? but now you're able to speed up the time to resolution by giving these tools and this knowledge to the MSP to solve the problem faster, which is really important with something as critical as communications.
100%. Like we were talking about a little bit on the interview, this all came out of for me being an MSP. You ever talk to a vendor and they're giving you answers, especially support, and it just doesn't smell right? It's just, you have that feeling that they may be full of it, speaking nicely, but it's there. I always used to look at it as there's telco time, which is, we've all had that conversation with the telco or VoIP provider. Yeah, we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 business years, see what happens. And then there's MSP time. MSP time is your clients wanted to solve it yesterday. The less often you have to call us for support, the faster you can look like superstars to your clients. And that's what we want. We want to put you in a situation where you can support the clients without having to rely on vendors for absolutely everything. But you get in a jam, you come to us and we'll help you out. Whether it's white label, where it's your client, your brand, your everything, you're billing the client directly. They have no idea who we are. We're your tier 3. You come to us with the stuff we asked for, the call logs, the SIP traces, and the SIP trace is just a link you pull out of the portal. It's not even that complicated. We give you the stuff to ask, so we get the answers, and then we help you with it. And if you're a channel partner, even better, because I know there's a certain set of MSPs that just want to be hands off. Like phones are not their thing. They have no interest in phones being their thing, and I absolutely respect it. Doesn't mean you can't make money. That's what channel partners for. And beyond the making money, it's putting your clients with a solution that's never going to make you look bad. That's really important, right? Because MSPs all trust. That's the whole point. It's relationship. So this, I know this. I know all the MSPs know this, but the important thing is you want to have vendors that support that. And so we've been there, right? Another thing I want to call out real quick, the SBC, point 2 on the slide, the session border controller. Usually you have it when you have an on-premises PBX. There's some people who use Raspberry Pis for this. Some people, they use Edgemarks or, bigger devices. We don't require it at all. Our SBCs are in the cloud. One of the reasons I've never liked SBCs on premises is, especially carrier provided, most of them have VPNs enabled. They can get into your LAN. For especially today, this was irksome to me back in 2010, 2011. Today, with the security risks we have today, the threat landscape, I'd be paranoid that you don't want to let anybody on your network. And especially you don't want people VPNing in. If you have a separate SBC for your phone provider, put it on a VLAN. Put it, and then make sure you're locking your network down. VLAN is not security, but it's as close to as you're going to get without a physically separate LAN. So please do that. Don't let your vendors put an SBC on premises. VPN, that's another one, right? That was the old school way. If you had a phone system at your office and then you wanted to go work from home, you'd VPN over to the office, right? We did that. And then here's the problem. If you have a bandwidth constrained environment or lots of jitter, lots of latency, because the VPN's a black box, the session border controllers can't do a whole lot with that on the cloud. The other thing is, remember, VPNs add latency. They add overhead to the frames. So, depending on what VPN you're using or MPLS, but they add extra data to the frames. So sometimes there's MTU issues, right? Most offices you're set at 1500 by default. But if you have a home network and maybe they've done some funny business, instead of 1504, they've done 1300, they've put it higher, and now you're getting frames cut off. It's not like you're sending an email. Frame gets cut off, it retries, and you're good to go. But VoIP is UDP. It's not TCP. Mm-hmm. There's no confirmation that anything was received. It's just yelling in a forest and hoping it was received. That's the truth. That's what UDP is. And so,
well, it's because it has to be real time.
It has to be real time, and that's exactly it. And because it's real time, when audio starts dropping out, you notice immediately when your two are not in sync. And we've all been on that Teams call where you talk over each other because the timing's just a little off. With VoIP, that's painful. Talking to somebody and then having to wait 2 or 3 seconds to get back to you, that's painful. So you don't want to add overhead where it's unnecessary. And like I said, because it's cloud hosted, you don't have to worry about VPNs. You literally log in anywhere. Now, with that said, if you're one of those providers that are running a constant VPN or a SASE solution, we do too. We use Cloudflare. Nothing wrong with it. We do our VoIP over Cloudflare, and it works just fine. There's a difference between your home to the cloud, your office to the cloud, and office to office, home to office. It's a different type of connection. So just be cognizant of that. If you're one of those companies that you have everybody running over SASE or over a SASE or over a VPN, we can support it because it's also a very different class of VPN that we don't have to worry about as much. And if you want that handshake, that's what the 5061 is for. We do support SIP over TLS, and once you do the TLS, it all becomes TCP, and then you have that. It's a little bit slower, milliseconds, fractions of a millisecond. You're not going to notice, but it's there for sure. Just stuff to look out for. Oh, see, in today's terms, this is. Are you muted?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
But it's a real thing. Yeah.
It is a real thing. Same thing with the one-way audio or the delays, or you'll hear sometimes an echo. That used to happen a lot with an on-premise PBX that had analog phones attached, because analog phones are carrying 1.67 to about 15 volts of electricity, and there was crosstalk because you had EMF going across devices. So not fun. But one-way audio, SIP ALG. SIP ALG is the big bad. That is the Baba Yaga. That's like killing John Wick's dog. SIP ALG, stay away from it. Asymmetric NAT, back in the SonicWall days when I used to do presentations for them on VoIP, because everybody hated SonicWall with VoIP. And so, we had to tell them about sticky NAT. NAT, I'm sure most of you know. I'll just dumb it down real quick in case anybody's new getting into this. NAT is basically something comes in from the firewall. Everything comes into the firewall from a single IP, usually a single public IP. And then your firewall says, these 15 devices, I'm mapping it to this 192.168. I'm mapping it to this other 192.168. And the streams connect. Sometimes the firewalls get that lost in their table. Or sometimes, depending on the firewall, they have only a limited amount of in-service memory of cache. So it is very easy to fill up those routing tables depending on the traffic you're doing, especially nowadays, which is why we always oversize firewalls. That's something in my MSP days, and I still do to this day. But asymmetric NAT is less of an issue today where it gets crossed over, but it can happen. I've seen it happen still today with Meraki and with Zyxel, and it's always solvable. Something to be aware of. Another thing, firewall RTP range. Remember we talked about RTP? That's the audio that gets through. Well, if you're going through and you may have opened, I said that 10,000 to 20,000 is some devices, per the spec, you can go down to, it starts at 10,000. You can go up to like 27,000 per the spec, per RFC 3261. But almost always it's 10 to 20,000. That's a safe space. But if you start seeing that audio's coming in one way, the easiest way to look, you look at the SIP trace. We have that in our phone system. You go to the portal, you look at the SIP trace, and you'll see the call coming in was on this port, blah, blah, blah. The call coming out was on a different port. You have that mismatch, you're going to lose audio because the audios are going each way. That 10,000 to 20,000 uses 2 ports per call. So, inbound and outbound. So if they're out of sync, that's going to happen. Codec mismatch. Remember, we talked about the language, 722, 729. Right. 711 is actually ULAW and ALAW. We use ULAW in the States, North America. But if we come in and we say, okay, well, you're on 729, you're on 722 high bandwidth, and I'm on 711, which is a standard, we can't communicate. That's the whole point of that 5060 setup. We speak these languages. More modern phone solutions have other codecs as well. We use Opus for our mobile solutions. Opus actually, in the middle of a call, can adjust how much bandwidth it's using to accommodate the current conditions. Really cool technology, which is why for mobile, it lends itself perfectly.
Right.
and it's not common to change codecs mid call. I've seen it happen. It's like once in a blue moon. It's very uncommon. And again, you can tell that from the SIP trace. So the point is, today, all problems are solvable. I promise. It's just a matter of, figuring out what the problem is. Invisible. Well, yeah, absolutely. You want that in front of you, right? I have a resource kit. I'm going to give this slide deck to you so you can share with the group also. But I also have another resource doc I'm putting together for you with a lot of the tools you can use to diagnose these things, even if you're not using OIT VoIP. If you use OIT VoIP, you don't need any of this because we have it all covered. But as much as I would love to say every MSP should only ever use OIT VoIP, let's be realistic. They're coming from something else. They may not be able to cut over right away. Sometimes you got to float two solutions. Let's be honest. So we want to help you for all of that. But I'm going to get you some resources. We use a tool called Ping Plotter, which has a cloud component, and the client installs something local. They are SOC 2 type 2. They are all this stuff, because the minute you start saying install local agent, my spidey senses light up.
Yeah, there's a cringe factor there for sure.
100%. And this is not required. This is specifically, if you want to run a PCAP on your local network, do it yourself and give it to us. If you want to run from your firewall, we'll tell you how to do what you need to do. Ping Plotter gives us the advantage of it collects all of the data we want to look at. And actually, you can see it too. So when you send us the Ping Plotter stuff, we don't pull it from your network at all. And you can actually just run it yourself and give us the results. We don't need to, there's no OIT version of Ping Plotter. It's just a great tool like Screen Connect. And it'll give us the information we need because it runs over a longer period of time. Most firewalls kind of, choke when you do an 8-hour PCAP, right? Because again, so much memory. If you're fortunate enough to have a mirror port on your switch, even better, but you still need something collecting the data. Right. Ping Plotter is the easiest thing, and they have a free plan, so yay for everybody. So jitter and packet loss. Oh, these are the two dark horses for the apocalypse for VoIP. Jitter. You ever go to a McDonald's or you're talking to somebody on a cell phone and you hear,
yep,
there's your jitter. And basically what it means is the speed with which stuff is going to you and from you, and this is on both sides, it's not even, right? VoIP, we're not, even though you speed up, slow down, there's an expected level of frame rate, right? And that's basically what it is. You see a movie at 30 FPS or 60 or 59 FPS, you expect that consistency. And actually a movie tool they use is sometimes they'll change up during an action scene. They'll do it at 24 FPS to make it a little more cinematic, and then they'll go back to 30 FPS for normal. On TV, they use that fairly often. But on VoIP, you don't want that ever. It's the equivalent of and packet loss does the same thing. That's why they're together. Remember, it's UDP. We're shouting at you. I'm not making sure you got the packets. I'm not making sure you got all the packets. I'm not making sure you got them in the right order. There's a lot that can go wrong, which is why you want your provider to have this all really, really, really dialed in. So that when something goes wrong, we point at you. No kidding. When something goes wrong, we know what to find and fix.
Right.
But we want to account for these things. And the easiest thing, we have a speed test, VoIP test on our website you can use. You can honestly, speed.cloudflare.com. That's the easiest one. Actually, one of the better speed tests I've seen. I like it better than Ookla. But it'll give you your jitter. It'll give you your packet loss. It'll give you your latency, which you really want to. Most providers will tell you we want under 50 milliseconds of latency. Truth of the matter is, as long as you're under 100, we're good. You're not going to notice a difference on 7-Eleven over at 100 milliseconds. But we want it under 50. Ideally, most of our stuff is under 30, just because of where our POPs are and where our network connectivity is. But jitter, you want that low of 0. Jitter, you really want 0. Packet loss, you always want 0. You really shouldn't have a lot of reason for packet loss in modern networks. If you have packet loss, there's something else going on. And we tell you to have that conversation with the carrier. And then also we can always switch to TCP for connections. If we're seeing real packet loss, we're seeing, real malformed packet. Well, we can't do anything about malformed packets, but if we're seeing packets arriving out of order, remember TCP will collect and reorganize before transmitting it. The downside to that is it's much more overhead, not much, about 30% more overhead, 30% more resource intensive for the firewall, because they got to get it out quick. And if they can't get it out quick, you're going to notice delays. So it's not something we do by default for everybody. If you have a Linksys router in your office, one, shame on you. Two, it's not going to cut it. You know what I mean? So, I'm XMSP. I'm going to judge everybody, man. No, I'm kidding.
Well, especially with a Linksys router.
Oh man, but who didn't use those WRT54Gs, man? I'm sure I have one in a warehouse.
I have one.
Somewhere.
I still have one in the archive.
Nice. Did you put tomato on it, or you left it stock?
You know what? It's been so long. I know that I've done tomato on those before. I don't know if that one has tomato on it.
Fair enough. It would be a great show to just have from the tech archives, like any of us going into our stash and just pulling out stuff and seeing what we remember about that. Who doesn't have half a dozen zip disks somewhere? Which we've got somewhere. There's a set of MSPs like, what's a zip disk? anyway, E911. There's so much compliance when it comes to telco. It's terrifying. And everybody that doesn't want you to sell VoIP to compete with them, they're going to say compliance is so hard. Sell our channel program. You don't have. It's BS. We launched in 2024. I'm sorry, even earlier, 2023. We launched our managed compliance program. In telco, you have a lot of compliances. You have Public Utilities Commission, E911, NINA, USF. You have tons of stuff, tons of reporting requirements. We have approximately 200 reporting filings we do every single month. And then every 6 months and 12 months, it's even more with the FCC, with USAC. Our managed compliance means you don't have to worry about any of that. Kerry's Law, Ray Bombs Act, you don't have to worry about it. 10 DLR, you don't have to worry about it. We cover it all in our managed compliance, whether you're white label or channel partner. But some really important stuff for you to know, especially those of you running on-premises PBXs. There's a certain, probably the 9 to dial, what you say, like until 2010, it was still fairly common. So legacy PBXs on-prem digital used to be configured that you would dial 9 to get an outside line. Many hospitals, if you don't, will still do this to this day, because there are conventions in Ray Bombs and Kerry's Law that if you haven't modified the phone system, you haven't made any changes whatsoever, including configuration, and the system was installed prior to a certain date, you're exempt from this until the minute you have to make a change. So if you're changing your business hours, you're changing your auto attendant, you immediately have to do this. And it's some simple stuff. This comes from, they want the police or fire emergency services to know where you are in a building, right? Not just here's the address, but you're at a school, this is the address, building this, floor this, room this. And we have that set up so you can just get that granular. There's some other stuff. It requires the dispatch address. That's what I just talked about. You have to be able to dial 911 directly. You can still use 9 plus whatever extension internally. 911 needs to go out. Also, nobody needs to do 9 plus extension nowadays. Just don't do it. You have to be able to notify somebody on dial, very much like the elevators. When they push the button, it goes to, somewhere, usually a front desk. We have this via phone, email, and text, which all satisfies the items. And then, the soft clients, mobile apps, right? This is where it's most common. If you're using Bria, Zoiper, or using our own Cloudy Connect or whatever the branded version you use as a white label, we have that all brandable for you. Those clients, you want to make sure if you're using one of those third-party ones that when you dial 911, it checks the address first. Our mobile clients, actually, when you dial 911 from a cell phone, it will not let you use a mobile app. It always defaults to the native 911 dialer or the native dialer from your cell phone, because we take it that seriously. And when you're dialing from cell phone, the cops or the PSAP, the public service answering point, knows immediately. So easy enough. Just something, it's a gotcha, because the client's not going to get in trouble. The phone provider is. And if you're selling the on-premises solution and you're supporting it, that's coming at you. So don't do it. Plus, it's kind of jerk way to get in trouble. Like let people dial 911, right? Like this is not the one you want to play with, right?
No.
Yeah. Similarly, trying to think about the other one. We'll get to though. E911. That's the important one. Stir shaken. Aren't you happy that since 2025 you haven't received any spam phone calls ever since that date? Right? Like, right? No.
Yeah.
Stir shaken and 10 DLC. These are my PTSD items. On the 9/11 thing, real quick. As of June 10th, 2025. You also, wrong way. You also need to be able to dial 933 to go to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That was one of the things we actually affected when it was first announced in like May 2024. The minute they sent the announcement, we had it configured same day. But you have to be able to allow 933 to dial. There's no actual law or act that says that. It's an FCC ruling, but you're still subject to it. So make sure those work. I'm sorry, not 933. 933 is testing for 9/11. 988 is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. And they do have a 1-800 number too. So if you have an on-premises PBX, forward 933 to that 1-800 number. That's easily Googleable, or call us.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. So stir shaken. All right, we got one good tip. We're good. No. Stir shaken. Oh, so the idea is great. The idea is fantastic. I send you a call. I'm attesting I am the owner of this number and I can prove ownership. And then when you send me a call back, you are also proving ownership. So I know it's an A. I know it's you've shown me you own this number. So it has higher likelihood that it's not a spam call. Also, to send and receive, you need to actually sign it. There's a cert. You need a certificate. You need to use to sign it. And we do this. And we also filter B and C. So the way attestation works is you have A, B, or C. A, I absolutely know the number. I own the number. We've ported it in, and or the client has shown, and this is an OIT policy, and or the client has shown us that they are the owner of the number, right? So you're porting to us from AT&T. We need to make sure we're not going to hold it against you when we're masking the outbound calls while you bring it in. We have a copy of your phone bill. We know you own the number. So we'll still mark it attestation A. B, Eric says he owns the number and I trust him. I have no verification to it. He's a good guy. We're good. B, we take it a little less with a little less confidence. We take it and we still pass the call through. This is also if you have call forwarding set up, if you're doing masking and it's not a number you're porting into us and you haven't shown us ownership, it'll come out as B. And then C is just spam. Like anything comes in as C. You know what I mean? It's like I have no idea where the number comes from. I have no idea who the owner is. Which is funny because there's a know your client rule now where you actually have to know who your clients are. And there's some reporting that gets around it. We hide it from the white labels and channel partners because that's our job with managed compliance. But there's a know your client rule too in line with this. So I'm identifying myself. I'm authenticating myself with a certificate, sending it off to you with the full details. You verify my certificate. You verify the details. You pass the call in. And it's supposed to stop all the scams. The problem is Stir Shaken is only in North America, US and Canada, and Stir Shaken is only for VoIP. Analog lines, which we call the PTSN, the public switch, PSTN, public switch telephone network. That's all the legacy network, which is still about 70% of the country right now. But the minute we pass it off, we have no control anymore. It's not digital. We have no, which is the same reason there's no such thing as HIPAA compliant VoIP. We have ways to make your installation HIPAA compliant, but the minute you send the call off network, you can't control encryption at rest and in transit. You can't control auditing who had access to the call because it's out in the public network.
Right.
And that's also the same reason Stir Shaken can't happen on the public switch telephone network. It's analog. There's no checking for digital. So another reason Stir Shaken's better. That's also the reason you still have it. That's why it's a headache. But that's also the reason you still have spam calls, because if they're using a call centric or Vitality based out of Eastern Europe, they don't have to have Stir Shaken. Easy rule of thumb, if they made it easier for you to sign up and start making calls, they're probably not doing stir shaking. 10DLC, the other bad guy in the room. Everybody selling VoIP has come across this at this point. Eric, you're not receiving spam text messages anymore, right? Because that's a thing of the past too, right?
Right.
Yeah. So 10DLC, there's two types. There's A2P, which is an application to a person, and there's P2P, person to person. Really easy, really easy to understand. This is created by the cell network, the cell companies, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, because they own it's not like 99% of the messaging that goes throughout the US.
Right.
10DLC is only a US solution, by the way, or a US problem. Canada doesn't have to worry about this. But 10DLC, the way it works is I've given you my company information, right? It could be in DUNS, it could be address verification, blah, blah. And then your brand is verified, right? All Things MSP as a brand is verified. Then there's a campaign that needs to be verified. I'm going to use these numbers to do these calls. It's transactional. It's not mass marketing, or it is mass marketing. There's some things that will always give you a headache if you're using it for voting, if you're using it for, there's some other gotchas. And we have a doc. That doc there, actually, the 10DLC messaging overview on the bottom, gives you the most common validation reason or vetting reasons that fail and what you should be doing. And it gives you a quick walkthrough how to do it. In our platform, we actually made it so it actually gives you prompts along the way telling you, based on this is a better choice, giving you all that stuff ahead of time. So it's really just click, 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 click. But the vetting process, there's still a third party, whether it's Cineverse or the compliance registry, TCR, campaign registry, TCR. All the vetting goes through them. So it'll go to your carrier, like for us, Bandwidth, IntelliQuint, Cinch, whatever, goes through us, and then it goes to TCR to validate also. So it does take sometimes a week, 2 weeks, pain in the ass. Average is about 3 days, but it can take a minute. So, you want to be careful with this, but the fines are really rough, $1,000, $10,000 per incident. You send out 100 texts and you don't have 10 DLC, and I haven't seen the fines yet because it's been going on since last year and it's a giant mess. But it stands to reason. Don't put yourself in that position, right? Just don't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then the 10 DLCs thing, I will tell you up front, it's the biggest scam on the planet. It is AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon said they want to start collecting this money. Of course, if you have a cell phone, you've never had to do 10 DLC because they don't make you do it. But if you're selling VoIP, and if A2P is treated differently, we are A2P. The FCC has ruled that phone systems, cloud phone systems, serving businesses is still A2P, which gets treated differently in P2P. Somehow the mobile networks are all P2P, so they have much less, and they created the regulation, so I don't have to do jack about it, but not fun.
A little unfair there, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's never unfair. Come on, man. So this is one of those things we pass through the costs dollar for dollar. We're not making any money on it. My opinion is, and this is 100% of the company, this is an unnecessary hindrance because it's not solving anything, but it's just part of the game. It's like your business tax receipt you need for your business. It's just part of the game, so we try to make it as easy as possible. Some of the reasons it gets rejected, and again, those rejection reasons are on that doc on the bottom, most often is because you don't have an opt-in or opt-out message. Anybody is supposed to be able to reply stop and be able to stop receiving them. And you can always tell who's compliant and who's not, because if that spam message doesn't say stop to stop it, guarantee they're just going to harass the hell out of you. And that's another thing. Your phone system needs to be able to send those messages to say stop. As a business, A2P is required for that. So if you're using alternate solutions, make sure they have some kind of functionality for it, because if not, you're not compliant. Many of the carriers now, to avoid, because it's AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon that are finding the people, or can find the people. So the carriers can even get fined, like Bandwidth, IntelliQuint, Telnix, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And because they don't want to get fined, understandably, they've started blocking text messages that are not 10DLC compliant. This is only applicable to outbound. Nothing inbound is ever checked. Never checked by the receiver. So that's another reason why spam texts still happen to this day. But, fun stuff. Internet never goes out, right?
We were just talking about this before we started recording.
Yeah. Anybody that sees the interview and then this knows our clothing is different. Literally yesterday, my power went out for several hours. Power outage, internet outage, phone outage. These are the things an MSP needs to be able to plan for, period. Today, as an MSP, you have so much more responsibility. You have your BDR plans, you have your failover plans, you have everything documented, you have your list of sub-processors, depending on if you're doing NIST or whatever you're doing. There's a lot. Planning for failover is not something, it's something you should have a plan for, but it's not something you should have to worry about. With us, that's exactly how we do it. Our platform, every user, you can say, if the phone is unavailable, and unavailable not being busy or on a call, unavailable means not reachable, it will automatically reroute somewhere else. And that could be to a different phone. If you have a phone in the office and a phone at home, they share your extension, they can be operated independently, but they have the same extension, so you can work from anywhere. Then you want to be able to receive the call at home. You're leaving the office, you go home, the office internet went out, you receive the call at home. You want it forwarded to your cell phone. You want it forwarded to your soft phone app. You want it forwarded to whatever, to your cell phone service through OIT, even better. You transfer that and it just happens automatically. We do support failover for SIP trunks too, if you're running an on-premises PBX. This happens a lot, like when we're taking over an Avaya or we take even a 3CX. Part of our zero downtime transition process is we'll help you set up a second trunk on the 3CX PBX. So we'll port the numbers first, which keeps going to the PBX or whatever on premises it is. And then you can migrate the phones over, but you don't have to worry about porting at that point because you can reroute the phone calls wherever you want.
Right.
Another example of how we help the MSPs get this done on their schedule, not ours. But stuff happens. You want to make sure there's some plan in place. Regardless of what plan you have, find out from your vendor how they handle internet failover, because you don't want to assume that, right? And it's not always obvious in the whatever platform or whatever UI they're using. So you want to ask it. Testing, thankfully, is real easy. Just pull the internet cord. Nobody complains about that.
If you pull the cord, nobody complains. You got it right.
We joke about it, but when I used to do those for CBON, when I used to do those activations and the cutovers, I used to, I would tell them we're going to do the cutover between 10 and 10:30. We're starting now, blah, blah. But, you tell them the internet's going to be down. They're still streaming. You can hear it in the office. So when I did the cutover, I wouldn't tell them yet, right? It's in the window. It's my prerogative. I do the cutover on the internet and I just wait and listen. If you hear somebody yell or complain, they noticed. If you don't hear anything, you did your job right. And the reason I like doing that is because I call it the toaster principle. You ever go and you change the AV? Hey, we like this AV because the other one wasn't as good, or now we're using Defender, blah, blah. We changed something. We added a new internet connection that's only backup. You're not using it now. It's just on the system. And suddenly my computer's slow, my internet doesn't work, my toaster didn't start, I have a flat tire when I got out of the house this morning. So I call it the toaster principle. So my way of testing without yanking the WAN cord, just DNS block. Easiest thing in the world on the device. That's an easy way to check. Or just unplug that phone. That'll do it too. Don't take down a whole office. Not that I've ever done that by mistake. Because, who hasn't?
No, none of us have ever done that.
None of us have ever done that. Now, I will say, OIT VoIP is a hosted company, right? We're a multi-tenant carrier platform. What's called a Class 4, Class 5 soft switch. Class 4 means it delivers calls. Class 5 is your voicemail auto-attendant call queue. That's the technical term. We are a cloud Class 4, Class 5 soft switch, which means you're not doing anything locally for registration. You're not doing anything locally for tuning the circuit. You're not doing anything locally for failover because you don't have to. It's all handled in the cloud. If you have an on-premises phone system, though, with SIP trunks, you need to plan for that. Again, our SIP trunks support failover. Most of the ones I've seen, especially the budget carriers, you know who the ones, you sign up, you have a credit card, you're good to go. Or you add credits to it and you're good to go. Nothing wrong with them. But they don't normally have any kind of failover because it's a budget item. So be very careful. We don't use those kind of carriers also. When you have a carrier, there's rate decks. If you just go sign up with somebody, 9 times out of 10, they're just going to give you the default rate deck, which is best effort completion. What we do is we have call quality rate decks or conversational rate decks. We're not using it for outbound marketing. We're not using it for short duration. Carriers hate it when you do think about it, you do a bunch of outbound calling, you get a voicemail and you hang up. Calls are under 30 seconds. Carriers hate that. And there's a couple reasons for it. Most of it is cost, but carriers hate that. We don't. We use conversation decks, which means it will connect. Zero question. It'll use the conversation connections to other carriers. And so what happens is you're doing those connections. The carrier differentiation makes a difference. You ever dial someone and then you hear dead air for like 10, 20, 30 seconds, and then it starts ringing? Yep. So what happens is you pick up the phone, you dial a number. Those first 2 rings come from the device itself. It's not from the provider. And that's really obvious. Sometimes you'll dial and you hear a different tone for the first 2 rings, and then you'll see it has a different timbre. It's maybe a little higher pitch or something on the third and subsequent rings. What happens is those first 2 rings, it's sending out that SIP offer to the carrier. It's saying negotiating the stuff, the SDP, the session description protocol. And after that, it's searching, let's say AT&T, it's searching different pops to see where, that's not a pop, but basically the same thing. It's searching different rate centers to see where it can connect that call. And so it'll try different carriers, just like the internet goes over multiple carriers. It's a mesh. Telco's exactly the same thing. And so if it hits the first one and it's blocked for whatever reason, this is a normal thing, they get blocked. And then it hits a second one and get blocked. It'll keep trying. Now, normally within 5 or 6 tries, it connects to somebody. The user has no idea. Usually that happens within a span of like 5 seconds. But sometimes it takes longer. And if the carrier is not configured to give that ring back tone, you won't hear anything until the call actually connects. That's that dead air. So if you experience that, that's what it is. And again, our stuff works so you don't have to. But good stuff to know. The stuff that bit me in the butt a couple times doing this stuff. Right. SIP trunking versus hosted PBX. On-premises systems is the most common use case for SIP trunking. SIP trunking is also cloud to cloud. I've done that for other voice providers that we service them. And so, this is just a quick TLDR. This is not because I don't think the MSPs don't understand the difference between on-premises and hosted. I want them to have the benefit. So when you go to your client and you want to pitch them on VoIP, whatever solution it is, these rules apply, period. And, hosted is always best. That's my opinion, but we're going to go with that. And then glossary, there's a lot of acronyms in VoIP. We've talked about QoS, quality of service. That's measured with MOS scores, mean opinion scores. The quality of the call will be 1 through 5. 4.7 is the highest practical number it can get. 5.0 is theoretical. Anything above a 3 is decent. Above 4 is a perfect call. 1s and 2s, somebody was struggling. There was a delay. There was some packet loss. There was something. And the mean opinion score is calculated and added to every call. You can do that through a SIP trace. Or with us, you just go to the call history. The call history, we have indicators right there. What was the MOS score? Now with the sentiment analysis, it's right there in the call history. And if you want to dive further, we have 2 other options for that. We have a cradle to grave, which will show you the short version. It did this, it hit an auto attendant, did this, connected. And then we have the full SIP trace with our quality of service. We call it VoIP monitor. Our quality of service monitoring platform, and there you can get a ridiculous amount of information. So we give it all to you. It is, I've had some like old school telco guys, like big iron guys, come to me, and like they would tell us it would take them forever to collate the data we're providing with a single click. PSAPs, those are 9/11 centers throughout the country. I actually used to work at one. I worked at City of Miami for 10 years at their PSAP. DSCP, that's, I'm not going to go through all of these. These are the ones that most often come up. So just be aware of it. Help docs, I want to make sure you can get to whatever you need. Our partner Discord, obviously, the majority of it is is OIT resellers, but we have public channels too for anybody else. Most of the people in there, it is a true community. We will help each other. I'll be on the All Things MSP Facebook group. I'll try to be on there, fairly regularly. Feel free to ask me any question at all. I'm here for you. And almost always I can point you to one of our VoIP docs that has the answer you're looking for. So there you go. If you're our client, send a support ticket. If you're not our client, don't send a support ticket. So what should we call it? And then we have a network configuration best practices. We also have in our docs, the doc I'm going to send over to you, Eric, for sharing, is also has onboarding best practices, the questions you want to go through with your client as you're doing the onboarding call, because like MSP onboarding, everybody does it a little differently. You want to have some kind of guide from somebody that's done it before. So we provide that, and that's universally applicable. Use it for anything. And that's it. I hope I answered everything. Eric, you think there's anything I didn't cover?
Well, I feel like we just had like a master class in voice over IP. So I think any MSP who wants to know the technical side of voice over IP, I think this gave them a much better understanding of why things do what they do under the hood than some other providers probably reveal. Because I think you come at it from that. Well, we mentioned it earlier in the discussion about telco time versus MSP time, and there's a disconnect there. Although I probably should not have used the word disconnect, because that's probably a bad word to use when we're talking about communications.
The boogeyman of VoIP.
Yeah. But there is, like, the client priority when it comes to communications does not match kind of the old school thinking of traditional phone systems.
Oh, for sure. And it's not, and it goes back to the toaster principle, because it's VoIP. It's not as foreign today as it used to be. I thank Vonage and Comcast for they spent the billions in marketing. So clients know what VoIP is today, but it's a newer technology to them. So any perceived issues are going to be a little exacerbated, because they're not used to it. It's unknown to them.
Right.
So one of the most typical things is like the call dropped. Why did the call drop? But to your point, being an MSP, that black box thing drove me nuts. In the portal, you can see who dropped the call, when did they drop the call, why was the call dropped? Did they send a bye saying we're indicating the call is over? Or did they just stop responding? Did we only get traffic from one side and not from the other, the return traffic? You can see that at a glance. So that black box goes away, because I don't have to I'll get on the phone and talk to your client if you want me to, but you're the one your client's going to ask. You're the one that's answering to your clients. There's nothing I'm going to say that is going to supersede Eric is my MSP. Eric is responsible for this. Right? Am I wrong? I mean,
and now the MSP has an educated answer. They can say, yes, it was us. This is what happened. This is what we're going to tweak to prevent it from happening in the future. Or no, this was on the other side. This was the person you were calling, had nothing to do with your system, and this is why it happened. And if you want to call them and tell them, let them know. Maybe give them their, our name and number so that we can provide their phone system from now on.
Second sale. Oh, for sure. Absolutely do it. And that's kind of the point. You want the MSP to be empowered because of the tools we have available to you. I look at it like a QBR report. You can take that SIP the call trace, circle some stuff or put some highlighter on it and say, this is where these things happened, knowing your client's not going to read a line of it. But it's like a QBR. It's pretty reports, got pretty graphs, and you can show them. And more importantly to me, when it's an ISP issue, you can take them the hard data and we'll tell you what to tell them, or we'll jump on a call. I have no problem with that. My engineers will jump on a call. We're staffed for that. But we can tell them, you can show them the exact thing. There is no, oh, we'll look into it. No. At this hop, you're dropping this traffic. You have, CGNAT enabled. You have whatever. Really easy to tell with our tools. So we even take the black box out of your ISP for a good portion of it. And I think that's what MSPs deserve, right? I mean, I don't think that's asking anything crazy.
I think deserve and need. So,
100%.
Ray, thank you so much for doing this. Like I said, I really do feel like we received a masterclass in voice over IP, especially the technical things that MSPs really need to know to navigate this. So I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And if the MSPs, you guys get in any kind of jam or anything, hit me up. I will help you. I have 10 years of Reddit history of helping people that never bought a thing from me. There's no qualms about that at all. But thanks, Eric. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to both present this and also to join the community. And I'm really happy we're finally getting to be a sponsor. It's a long time coming for as long as we've known each other. So thank you very much, man.
Well, and I appreciate it as well, obviously. And I think it is great to have the community where people who are kind of doing their own media things can come together and do things together. So I think it's just an extension of that.